has given into your fool's hands a power over this churchyard, and 'tis your trade to stop unseemly headlines from being set up within its walls, or once set up, to turn them forthwith. So I give you a week's grace, and if tomorrow send night yon stone not be gone, I will have it up and flung into pieces outside the wall." Mr. Gleany answered him in a low voice, but quite clear, so that we could hear where we sat. "I can neither turn the stone out myself, nor stop you from turning it out, if you so mind. But if you do this thing, and dishonor the graveyard, there is one stronger than either you or I that must be reckoned with." I knew afterwards that he meant the Almighty, but thought then that 'twas of Elzevir he spoke, and so perhaps did Mr. Maskew, for he fell into a worse rage, thrust his hand in the basket, whipped out a great soul he had there, and in a twinkling dashes it in Mr. Gleany's face, with a "Then take that for an unmannerly parson, for I would not foul my fist with your mealy chops." But to see that stirred my choler, for Mr. Gleany was weak as wax, and would never have held up his hand to stop a blow, even were he as strong as Goliath. So I was for setting on Maskew, and being a stout lad for my age, could have had him on the floor as easy as a baby. But as I rose from my seat, I saw he held Grace by the hand, and so I hung back for a moment, and before I got my thoughts together he was gone, and I saw the tail of Grace's cape whisk round the screen door. A soul is at best an ugly thing to have in one's face, and this soul was larger than most, for Maskew took care to get what he could for his money. So it went with a loud smack on Mr. Gleany's cheek, and then fell with another smack on the floor. At this we all laughed, as children will, and Mr. Gleany did not check us, but went back and sat very quiet at his desk, and soon I was sorry I had laughed, for he looked sad, with his face sanded and a great red patch on one side, and beside that the fin had scratched him and made a blood drop trickle down his cheek. A few minutes later the thin voice of the almshouse clock said 12, and away walked Mr. Gleany without his usual "Good day, children," and there was the soul left lying on the dusty floor in front of his desk. It seemed a shame so fine a fish should be wasted, so I picked it up and slipped it in my desk, sending Fred Burt to get his mother's gridiron that we might grill it on the schoolroom fire. While he was gone I went out to the court to play, and had not been there 5 minutes when back comes Maskew through our playground without Grace, and goes into the schoolroom. But in the screen at the end of the room was a chink, against which we used to hold our fingers on bright days for the sun to shine through, and show the blood pink. So up I slipped and fixed my eye on the hole, wanting to know what he was at. He had his basket with him, and I soon saw he had come back for the soul, not having the heart to leave so good a bit of fish. But look where he would, he could not find it, for he never searched my desk, and had to go off with a sour countenance. But Fred Burt and I cooked the sole, and found it well flavored, for all it had given so much pain to Mr. Gleany. After that Grace came no more to school, both because her father had said she should not, and because she was herself ashamed to go back after what Maskew had done to Mr. Gleany. And then it was that I took to wandering much in the manor woods, having no fear of man-traps, for I knew their place as soon as they were put down, but often catching sight of Grace, and sometimes finding occasion to talk with her. Thus time passed, and I lived with Elzevir at the Why Not, still going to school of mornings, but spending the afternoons in fishing or in helping him in the garden or with the boats. As soon as I got to know him well, I begged him to let me run the cargoes, but he refused, saying I was yet too young and must not come into mischief. Yet later, yielding to my importunity, he consented, and more than one dark night I was in the landing boats that unburdened the lugger, though I could never bring myself to enter the Mohune vault again, but would stand as sentry at the passage mouth. And all the while I had round my neck Colonel John Mohune's locket, and at first wore it next to myself, but finding it blackens the skin, put it between shirt and body jacket, and there by dint of wear it grew less black, and showed a little of the metal underneath. And at last I took to polishing it at odd times, until it came out quite white and shiny, like the pure silver it was. Elzevir had seen this locket when he put me to bed the first time I came to the Why Not, and afterwards I told him whence I got it. But though we had it out more than once of an evening, we could never come to any hidden meaning. Indeed, we scarce tried to, judging it to be certainly a sacred charm to keep evil spirits from Blackbeard's body.